Hello, everyone. We see folks starting to come on in. Thank you for joining us tonight for our Why Healthcare Leaders Choose the MIT EMBA webinar. Sarah, we ready to get started?
I think
Amazing.
so. I'm ready.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Ackerman. I'm the Senior Director of the MIT Executive Degree Programs. So that is comprised of both the EMBA as well as the Sloan Fellows MBA. And I'm joined tonight by my colleague, Sarah.
Hey, everyone. Looking forward to talking tonight.
Amazing. Let's get started.
All right.
So, looking high level at the agenda, I'm going to start with an intro to the MIT EMBA. I'll hand it over to Sarah to talk a little more about healthcare at MIT. And then, most importantly, we're going to be sure to save time for a panel discussion with some of our current students and alumni. At any point throughout the webinar, please feel free to use the Q&A function, and we can either type out an answer to you or have our panelists answer it live if it makes sense. So I can't start talking about the MIT EMBA program without first talking about the mission of MIT Sloan, which is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and to generate ideas that advance management practice. The mission of MIT Sloan is kind of central to everything that we do. As you're going through the application process, we want to hear how you relate to the mission. When you come to campus for classes, the mission is written on the wall in the building. So, one piece of feedback that we heard over the last few years is if the program is so mission driven, why isn't there its own EMBA mission? And now we do have one. And so the mission of the MIT EMBA is empowering and connecting leaders to redefine our shared future. And as we go through the presentation tonight and you hear from the panelists, hopefully this mission resonates with you all. So, looking at the 20-month experience that is the MIT EMBA, the class of 2028 will have orientation in September of 2026, with classes starting that same October. You will come to campus for 26 weekend sessions. And so we define a weekend as Friday and Saturday, and these occur every 2 to 3 weeks. Yes, there are times where you might be coming to campus every other week, but there also might be times where you're only coming once a month. In addition to these 26 weekends, there are 4 week-long modules that you'll be coming to campus for, and there's also the option for an international week-long project trip. Now, the schedule of the program might look a little different from the traditional 2-year MBA or the Sloan Fellows MBA, but you are getting the same degree, an MBA from MIT. We tell students to expect roughly 15 to 20 hours of work outside of the classroom. And so that might be for readings, group work, individual assignments. And this, of course, can vary depending on the courses that are occurring at any time, as well as the functional expertise of the student. So for the curriculum, I'm going to kind of talk high level about some of the buckets and anything that we go over tonight. We do have additional information on our website, so you can always feel free to visit that if you want a little bit of a deeper dive into some of these topics. So those 26 weekend sessions that I mentioned are broken down between courses that focus on analytical frameworks or business essentials. The analytical frameworks are courses like an organizational processes or system dynamics that look at the greater organization and processes. And then there are business essentials, which are really key for general managers. So it might be courses that you'd find in the same function of a C-suite, so like an operations, a finance, a marketing. The integrated modules are those 4 week-long sessions that I mentioned, and they're a deep dive into specific topics. So the first module, when you start in October, will be Leadership and Integrative Management, or LIM, and it's affectionately called Walmart Week, and it's just a crash course for general managers looking at a large organization, and so we also talk about Amazon. The second module, which the class of 2027 is about to have, is Innovation Driven Entrepreneurial Advantage, or IDEA. The name kind of gives it away. It's focusing on innovation and entrepreneurship. The third module is Leading in a Global Context, LGC, which focuses on macroeconomics and global markets. And then finally, the program wraps up with Leading with Impact, which is a time to take everything you've learned over the 20 months and apply and help a local Boston nonprofit solve a problem within their organization. While action learning, oops, sorry, Sarah, is threaded throughout the curriculum, we do have two courses that really focus on it. Organizations Lab or OLab. You're going to be tasked with, over the course of 6 months, solving a problem within your own organization. And then for executive labs, we have two options, either Go Lab or Idea Lab. Go Lab is that 1 week international project that I talked about. And then Idea Lab is where you can take perhaps your idea from Idea Week or something else and work on it for the rest of your spring semester. While the program is primarily lockstep in how the courses are, meaning they're building on top of one another, there are periods of electives in your first and second January, as well as your second spring semester. So the profile that's on the screen right now is for the class of 2026, but it looks pretty similar over all of our cohorts. There are roughly 130 global executives in the program each year. Roughly 65% are non-local, meaning they're traveling to Cambridge from outside of Massachusetts. 76% are at the director level and above. 61% come to us already holding an advanced degree. And perhaps the most important statistic on here is that 100% of the cohort is employed, so that you're all able to take what you're learning in the classroom and apply it immediately back to work. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah to talk a little bit about healthcare at MIT.
Okay, perfect. So you may already know that MIT has actually a really great strength in healthcare, especially positioned where we are and with our expertise in deep science. And so even at Sloan, the Health Systems Innovation is a group at Sloan that, they identify high quality, cost effective health systems. They are working to advance the industry. And so they do all kinds of things at Sloan. They're bringing together faculty, researchers, people from around campus, from the industry, et cetera. They do a number of things, right? One example is the healthcare certificate at Sloan. Any student at MIT can earn a certificate along with their degree, right? It's something that doesn't show up on your transcript, but it provides you a pathway of courses in an area of interest to you. Now, many of you on this event tonight might, if you're already working in a healthcare industry, the certificate itself might not really be of added value to you, although there will be interesting offerings as part of that you might want to tap into. The Health Systems Innovation Group also, right, they host things like the Healthcare Innovation Prize, which is having their finals tonight, right? That's a pitch to VCs for innovative ideas in healthcare with a $30,000 prize. Tomorrow, there is on campus, right? This is just really current things that are happening all the time. Tomorrow, there's the Healthcare and Bioinnovations Conference at the Media Lab. So things like this are just kind of constantly happening at MIT. In addition to that, there are all kinds of, I mentioned one conference, right? But there are clubs, student organizations, electives as part of that certificate. Even if you choose not to do the certificate, you can take electives if you choose, right? You might want to do one or two in your time with the executive degree program. We have a ton that are built into our program as well. And the focus on research and organizational connections, which you can tap into. For example, the MIT Industrial Liaisons Program is an office that coordinates with companies and organizations, connecting them with faculty and innovation and research at MIT. It's something that you could establish with your organization, right on the side of what you're doing as a student. All kinds of different ways to tap into what's going on here. And this is just to really look at a high level, just at a glance. We have in the Executive MBA program, Amber talked about a little bit about the class profile. We are really diverse, pulling from all kinds of industries. And so you're not going to be in a class full of only people in healthcare, but about a quarter of the class are in either healthcare or pharma or life sciences in some way. And these are just examples of companies that our current students are working on while they're here. Okay. So we've given you a high level, a little bit about the program, a little bit about healthcare at MIT, and now for the main event to talk to our students and alumni who've been here, are working in the healthcare industry, and have gone through the program. So without further ado, why don't we just go, maybe we'll go right to left just as the names appear on here, and just do a brief introduction, a little bit about your professional background and what brought you to MIT, and then maybe what's different between when you started the program and where you are now. Lish, do you want to start?
I would be happy to. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Fantastic.
It's so nice to see you guys. So my name's Lish Clark. I am an internist by background, and I have had a number of different roles in healthcare, really around academics and helping administer residency programs. Ultimately moved into operations and had a really heavy role during COVID, helping to run our network transfer center. And I think it was in that experience and several other operational roles that I really wanted to pursue this MBA. And during that time, not only did my job evolve during the MBA, I would say it changed my lens pretty much entirely about the delivery of healthcare and how it's organized. And the role I have now is very intentional about what I was hoping to get out of the MBA. And there's a lot of different ways I could have gone, but ultimately what I'm doing now is kind of developing a new business strategy within my health system, which is pretty true to the MIT entrepreneurial spirit. And I would say that for those of you that are thinking about this and thinking about this as a pathway into something different for your career, the potential is limitless. And I feel like MIT just opens your perspective and horizon, not only to see all those options, but then it puts out in front of you the skills that you need to pursue those. All you really need to do is spend the time and commit yourself, and the opportunities just open up. So happy to tell you more about my role, but I just wanted to give you that snapshot of how it's changed my career. Maybe on to Joseph.
Perfect. Joseph, yeah, great to. Oh, you've got some.
Hi everyone, my name is Joseph De Vera. I'm a first generation immigrant from the Philippines. And during my role, when I was in MIT, I shifted from an operational role to a strategic role for the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for California. And I think what MIT made me improve on was that I was recruited to lead the Level 1 Trauma Center in Seattle for University of Washington, wherein it was ground zero for COVID-19. So I don't think I could have survived as a healthcare leader, controlling pandemic, taking epidemiology into consideration and saving lives. So from the bottom of my heart, if you're thinking about it, it will prepare you for any sort of emergency, including a once in a generation pandemic. And right now, I am the co-founder and chief operating officer of Corexa, which is a which is a remote patient monitoring platform for early detection and notification. So yeah, but I have no words for MIT. And aside from the knowledge, it is the friends and community that you will gain from it that for me is the highest value proposition of the program.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, good evening. My name is Kira. I'm the Senior Director of Therapies at Franciscan's Children's Hospital. We're an affiliate of Boston Children's Hospital, and I'm a physical therapist by training, so I have a clinical background. And so for me, I come from a background in primarily home health care and now operational leadership within a hospital and outpatient setting. And as I've continued on in my career, I think what I really realized was, obviously in physical therapy school, all of my training was clinical. And what I learned about business, operations, finance, organizational processes was everything that I learned on the job. And I actually was connected through my boss with a PT who's a president of a hospital in Chicago, and he has his MBA. And I just had a real conversation with him. And I said, hey, like, you're a PT. I look up to you. This is what my career goals are. What do you think? And we talked a lot about an MHA or an MBA. And he said to me, you know what, like you have that healthcare experience and background, but with the MBA, what you are going to get is what you don't know outside of healthcare right now. And he said, if you want to continue on the executive path, which is my goal, he was like, I would recommend an MBA and really look at the programs where the learning is important, but also the connections that you're going to receive and what's going to carry you on through your career when you're done your learning. And I'm a Boston local. And so MIT, of course, made a ton of sense. And it's MIT, right? Like it's one of the most prestigious programs out there. So when I was thinking about like, should I do this? For me, it was a no-brainer. And what I will tell you is I have learned, and I didn't know what to expect going back to school. I haven't been in school in 10 or 12 years. I haven't taken a test. I haven't done homework. And that was really scary to me. And I thought that I was going to have to be the student that I was in physical therapy school and grad school the first time and be an expert in everything about everything. But what I really learned was it was that foundational knowledge for me, because now what I can do is I can speak to the CFO. And I may not be able to be a CFO myself, but I know the questions to ask. I know if I can trust this person. I know in my gut if what I'm hearing is, right or wrong. The same with marketing. I'm not going to be a chief marketing officer. The same with, analytics. I'm not going to be a chief information officer. But I have this foundational knowledge now where I can talk to everyone and I can engage in these conversations. I eventually will be able to hire these people. So for me, this foundational knowledge outside of what I went to school with for the first time has been, the biggest thing that I've taken from this program. But now kind of different than Joseph and Lish is I don't know what it looks like for me after because I haven't graduated yet. I'm coming to that. But what I will say is I've cold called a lot of people on LinkedIn who I have seen are MIT MBAs, EMBAs, Sloan Fellows. And I've said, hey, I'm Sloanie. I'm graduating soon. Can we set up time? And I will tell you every single one within a day has been like, yep, here's my calendar, book some time. And they have been so willing to this person they don't know to just talk to me and connect me with other people. So it's the learning, but it's also the network and the connection and the people as well.
Yeah, I've seen, I mean, that generosity I've seen of people kind of paying it forward. Everybody had some help from someone coming in or some bit of information. And I just see so often, alums and even you all, right? I mean, Kira, you're doing this right now, right? Even before you graduate. So, I see this continuing all the time. Well, before everybody puts in all of their questions in the Q&A, because I know we've got some participants today, they'll be able to ask you their questions directly. But, I know one of the things in particular, when you're coming from healthcare, maybe Kira, you talked to this a little bit, your classmates are coming from all over, from all over and industries across the board. What was it like being in a group with someone in an industry or a function that you had never worked with before when you're in a study group together?
Yeah, I will tell you, a lot of my study group members got me through these classes that I have no experience in, which was wonderful. And I think the biggest thing that was unexpected to me was when I was in grad school, the first time it was really competitive. None of us have ever worked before. None of us had jobs. A lot of us were looking for the same type of job because we're all in physical therapy school. So there was this competitiveness the first time I went. And so I just kind of expected that again. And I think the best thing about being in a study group with people of other industries is you can just let your guard down and you can really learn and you can be comfortable and you can feel safe learning from other perspectives and have people that teach you things in a way of thinking that is completely different than a healthcare operations provider. And my study groups have been wonderful. I had somebody who was really great in data analytics in my DMD study group. So as a physical therapist, I was like, this is wonderful. So you learn a lot in class and from your teachers, but you learn so much about things that you have no experience in from your classmates who do. And I've helped them in things related to healthcare. So there really is a mutual just respect for learning without competing with each other that I think is really special about being in a program like this.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Oh, Lish and Joseph both have things to add. Lish, do you want to go first?
Sure. I was actually going to give kudos to the program about this because I think you guys work really hard to balance the groups that you're put in, particularly, I'd say through both of the years, but certainly it's such a unique experience to get into a group where everybody's bringing such a different skill set and such a different experience background that really kind of complements each other. And I think, again, speaking to what the program cultivates, everybody comes with humility, right? Like I even now, I'm, 2 years out, I'm still texting friends who are, work in the marketing space to say, oh my gosh, how do I choose a CRM? Like I'm still looking to my classmates to help me in areas where I'm just not a content expert. But I completely agree with Kira that you end up like sort of everybody lifts up and ends up supporting each other. And yeah, in finance areas where I was completely green, there's no doubt that my group helped carry me, and other areas I was able to help carry them. So I think the what happens sort of naturally and through sort of the structural and the organization of what this team does to build the whole curriculum, it really does teach you that the sum of the pieces is more than the individual parts, and you all benefit because of it. I think that is something I was not expecting coming into quote business school. I was totally expecting more of the competition, but it really was kind of rising tide lifts all boats.
Nice.
Right.
Joseph.
In a nutshell, it simply maximizes your learning because for me, I'm coming from a clinical background in nursing. So when I had to rearrange, I have to assess the P&L. I have to see how I can allocate resources for the hospital as a nurse executive. It really helped that we had a lot of CFOs to assess different strategies. And the beauty of it as well is it's a never-ending relationship. So for example, for right now, when I'm trying to assess our financial strategy, I can just hop on a call with them and they would explain to me every aspect of it. And they are so generous with their time. So aside from the knowledge that you will learn from them, but for me, it's the relationship that is continuous and forever that truly makes it all worth it.
Well, and Joseph, you even started your company with a classmate.
Yes, yes. I even started with my classmate from MIT, who was actually a group mate of mine, BK, who was an expert on hardware. So it's the program. It's for me. It's just the best decision. It's almost it it would almost behoove you to not apply.
You got to do it. One thumbs up, have to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
You know, you're all looking at it. Even Kira, you're in your last semester, right? When you think back on, the first couple of semesters of getting acclimated to being back in school, were there tips, tricks, or lessons learned that helped you to figure out how to incorporate this into your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest fear was the last time I took a test was on a Scantron in college with a number two pencil. And I actually asked in class, I was like, so like, could we just, I don't know why, I was really stressed about the test taking. But what I will say is, when you get in and it's like riding a bike, it comes back very naturally. But I think also for us as healthcare leaders, we're constantly learning. The majority of us have CEUs, we take quizzes, like we have these learning experiences that aren't quite school, but they're very similar. So it's like once you get back in and you get over the nerves and the unknown, it falls back into place. And I would say the biggest thing is, so don't stress about the paperwork and the tests and the schoolwork, because you're going to completely lose sight over why you're here. And the first test is going to be really hard. The first paper you're going to reread 5 million times. But I think that first semester, the program does a really good job of just slowly bringing you back in with the types of classes and the types of assignments you have before it gets busy, because it gets busy and you have more assignments, you have more tests. But I've just appreciated how the program has been structured, understanding that a lot of us haven't done this for a really long time. So my biggest tip and trick is you will be okay going back to school. Just trust the program, trust the process. And by the time you get to the busy part again, you'll have easily just fallen back into it like riding a bike.
Good advice. Joseph, I see you're thinking something too.
I think a key piece for survival, because it's going to get hella busy during the program and balancing. I'm sure all of us work more than God knows how many hours in a day. So find efficiencies and synergies from with your job, with your group projects. So for example, for me, whether it's accounting or macroeconomics or system dynamics, the projects that I did for those subjects were connected to my job. So not only am I trying to to survive the EMBA program, but I'm also trying to help my professional life as well. Because I think one thing that a lot of my classmates experience is once you're in the program, there will be more scrutiny in your work, whether it's on your colleagues, peers, or your direct reports. So you need to make sure that you're on top of your work during the program because it can cause a lot of turmoil as well.
Yeah, that's the real part.
Right.
Um, I would double down on what Kira said, that you do kind of get eased back into it. I'm a natural born nerd and like love to be in a classroom, and I'd sort of forgotten that until I came back in. And I think the most important thing is sort of to try to put behind you some of the things that you're entrenched in and like really embrace a growth mindset. Like I asked some of the most honest and probably seemingly stupid questions really early on because I was really seeing things in a totally different way. And I think in terms of the, how do you incorporate it into your life? They really do kind of ease you into it. You don't start at 150. And it does, and they'll warn you in advance, hey, we're coming up to a more intense place. So a lot of it is just kind of planning ahead in your schedule. They will give you heads up. They're not just going to surprise you and say, you've got a 5-page paper due in 2 days. Like there is true recognition that you are also working a full-time job. And I would say, the opposite to Joseph, that I feel like I was afforded some leniency at my job, that they knew I was also doing an MBA and they were invested in me doing well on it. And they wanted me to do exactly what you said, where, take what you're learning and apply your current projects for exactly what you're doing in your classes, and how can we cross pollinate that information. But I do think that there is a general sort of grace that you're given, recognizing that you are balancing something big. And so, take an E when you have to, and you support your team and they'll support you back.
I agree with Lish and Joseph, actually, both of them. And I've kind of seen both, where I have a really supportive and great team and boss who have allowed me some leniency when I've needed it. But I will also say there is this unspoken, I think, expectation of the work that I now put out now and what I'm learning. So like I'm seeing both. Like there is a higher expectation, understanding what I'm doing and why I am doing it, but they're being really understanding and supportive of me in the process. We'll see what happens in June when I can no longer say that I'm busy with school. But I would say I agree with both of them because of those very reasons.
I mean, for your work, Kira, maybe you're the most recent. And so, what was your OLAB project on? Because we often see over the course of the program that the biggest impact can come from the medical and healthcare space on the changes you all are able to make. So, maybe if you want to start of something you took away and brought back for OLAB.
Yeah, actually, it's a really good question, Amber, and I'll kind of give two parts to that answer. One of like what something I worked on for the organization, but then also what I worked on for myself, because what you'll find in OLAB is it's not, they're not independent of each other. Like they go together, right? So my project was, we actually, Franciscan Children's Hospital, we affiliated with Boston Children's Hospital about 3 years ago. So as part of my role, I actually am the project manager of all of our clinical integration. So I have my real role that I signed the job description for, but I'm sure from all of you here too, like when you do your job well, you somehow get all these other jobs too. So I project manage that. And so we've really been looking at integrating our different departments and basically our throughput and our continuum of care. So I focused on streamlining the referral process from acute care at Boston Children's Hospital to post-acute care. at my hospital. And what came from it was really cool because we now are on a shared electronic health system, and we now have a process because we want to get the response to our referring providers as quickly as we can. And we knew that we could do a little bit of work there. So I worked with different departments, not just my own in therapies. And we came up with a process and what we call the admission coordination team. And essentially, it is a pathway of you get the referral all the way to when the patient comes in our door, what steps you follow, when do you communicate, what are the timelines, what do you need to escalate, how do you escalate it, how do you get the response, and how do we make sure that we get the patients to us as quickly as we can, because ultimately our goal is to give them care. And then I think probably, like a lot of people on here, one of my then personal things that I worked on was delegating a little bit more. And part of the project turned out to be outside of my scope because I'm a physical therapist. And part of the scope of the project, we needed physicians to take part in the process and make the decision. So I couldn't, like, as much as I wanted to, like, I had to let go of that part. So I was forced to, but it helped me realize that I don't have to do everything, and that there are a lot of really amazing, smart, competent people that if I say, here, take this process and create it and come back to me, that we can really work together and make a really good product for the ultimate goal of what we do in healthcare, caring for our patients.
Oh, that's really good. You know, we have an interesting question here about our program and, you know, related nonprofit models for healthcare in low and middle income countries. So I think thinking like outside of the US a little bit, I can, you know, I'm thinking on a really high level, I'm thinking about things at MIT that I know are focused on innovation in, you know, in lower and middle income countries, like the Quo Sharper Center that, you know, trains entrepreneurs. They have fellowships. There's education going on. That's a little bit more in the entrepreneurial space, but a lot of it, right, a lot of it focused on that. The Jameel Clinic does a lot of work. I wonder what other you know, thoughts come to mind of what you've seen and experienced at MIT, thinking globally.
Maybe I can speak to that from GoLab because my
Sure.
class is about to go to GoLab. So it's the week-long module where we are paired with a company internationally. And I know that a couple of the projects actually are healthcare related. And I know some of my classmates actually just went to South Africa for a project where they worked with some healthcare startups. So I think that there's some hands-on learning and projects that you can do with global healthcare. I took an economics of healthcare industries class as an elective. I didn't do the certificate for the reason Sarah mentioned. It just, for me, I wanted to focus on electives within healthcare and other industries, but we spent a couple classes talking about global health as well. And so I think there are definitely, if that's an interest to you, there are opportunities for you to include that in your curriculum on your own.
I think the other thing that I saw in my class was, you know, institutions of higher learning and research and innovation, and folks where people were coming from Mayo Clinic actually created their Go Lab project around creating another site for partnership and innovation internationally. I'm trying to remember if it was Singapore or where they went, but it was, they used that opportunity to strengthen those relationships between those institutions and bringing some of the things that they learned and making it more available to local partners for research, innovation, and med tech stuff. So I think that the opportunity is absolutely there, and there's enough depth and breadth in the MIT faculty that if you have an interest, there will be someone that can help connect you to the network and web of people, as well as someone who will be able to support and make it possible.
Yeah, there's probably somebody working on something similar in a way that you can partner with. Yeah. Wonderful. Perfect. Appreciate the good questions coming in. I think, you know, the actual opportunity to hear, you know, how you applied and what you encountered. Actually, you know, speaking of things that are outside of the curriculum, for you, what was your favorite or maybe most impactful thing that you participated in outside of the core curriculum, whether, whether it was something formal or something informal at MIT?
You're talking to me or just anyone?
Yeah.
The group, the general group.
Um, I would say without a doubt, it is and I, no disrespect to the men in the audience, the incredible network of women friends and women colleagues that I made at MIT. So even within 6 months of graduating, we had like a girls' retreat to New Hampshire. We're doing one again in 2 weeks. Like, I feel like I made a group of friends that they're the first people I call when I'm having trouble at work. They're the first people I call for advice and strategy. We're constantly helping to support each other as we navigate pivots in our careers and so I would say the most meaningful thing for me outside of the classes and like the incredible longitudinal weeks is the really amazing friendships that I made and new professional connections that honestly will carry me through most of my grown-up career, I hope.
It's a really good one. Joseph, I see we have a question about entrepreneurship and how entrepreneurship is, how like starting in entrepreneurship or moving into entrepreneurship is supported at MIT. And it's not the path that everybody takes, but you did make that transition. And so I wonder if you could talk about beyond just meeting your co-founder here, about what resources or learnings you took away from MIT.
I think the beauty of the MIT MBA program is there's a framework for everything, whether it's a financial model, system dynamics, decision tree, any sort of problem you will be prepared to tackle because at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And it's the frameworks that will help you operationalize in finding those solutions. Also, in the event that you can't really figure it out, guess what? You can just get on a call with your classmates. And even even today, right? I mean, I any problem that you have, so something as simple as building a relationship with another EHR, I have a classmate who had experience in that, so he guided me through that process. Or maybe planning a vacation for Japan. So uh, I have classmates that I'm still in contact with, and one of them is actually an executive in Sony who is in charge of the IP of Sony. So if I have any, and of course, I would ask him about how to protect your intellectual property and your technology. So it's a lot of it, the content of the program is hella powerful, but it's really the network that will bring you to the finish line and will elevate your career for me.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Um, one of the things, for people who are looking at entrepreneurship, there's kind of ways to experiment within the program too. And actually, Joseph, since you graduated, we have a role in our team of actually a formal role member of our team who helps connect students with entrepreneurial resources, EMBA students with entrepreneurial resources around MBA too, or around MIT as well.
And I'd like to add as well,
Oh yeah.
during the final project of my program was a stroke special innovation project for Medicare. And a lot of those concepts are present in my current company with regard to early detection and remote patient monitoring. So a lot of it might not make sense during the program, but you can only connect the dots looking backward sometimes.
Yeah, really good.
Of course.
We have a question from I see one question in the audience about, whether the program is for you if you're not in healthcare. If you joined us today and you're not in healthcare, yeah, absolutely, right? Healthcare is about 20% of the class, but we are 25% of the class, but the whole rest of the class is all the rest of the expertise and industries. Um, Oh, here's one that's kind of interesting, right? Amber mentioned how this is the same degree as the traditional 2-year MBA program, right? You're earning the same degree from MIT, but it is a different format and you're going through it in a different way. Um, you know, what were for you? I think this is a question about, are you missing out on some element of the traditional program by being at work and not being on campus every day? And how did it impact your experience, especially as you were and if you were looking for other roles?
Liz, you're gonna dive in?
I see you ready.
Yeah.
No, I was actually going to answer something we mentioned before.
Oh,
So
do it.
Yeah.
Go to that first.
I was going to say for those of you who are not in healthcare, um, I just want to give a quick background to why I choose this program and not other ones. So I looked at the Harvard. In fact, I was in the Harvard Masters of Healthcare Management a year or two before this. It was COVID. I didn't want to do it all remotely, and I thought I don't know if it's the right program. I almost went into a one of those MBAs that's purely for MDs. And honestly, guys, I decided I didn't want to learn in an echo chamber. Like, I didn't need to know how other doctors thought about healthcare because that's all I talk about. Those are the people I talk to every day. And so I would actually say the best thing about this class is not only does it have a decent amount of people who do what you do, but it's healthcare in different pockets that you're not used to. So tons of people in health tech, people in like biotech research, people in manufacturing, like parts of it that you've never probably thought about if you're in healthcare delivery. And I would say the most important thing that you're going to get from that class is the diversity of backgrounds. You know, people who work in fields that you've probably never considered, and actually you'll find that they have similar challenges to what you do, but in a totally different environment. So just getting back to the not only is it really great for people in healthcare, it's because you are not in an echo chamber and you're hearing from so many different perspectives. Sorry, back to your question now.
No, that was a really good one. I'm glad you brought that back. This question was really, really about, are you missing out on something by not being here full time? And I think the second part of the question, it was maybe a two question or a two-parter. The second part of it was, do people tend to shift or change, or do they tend to, stay in the same lane but strengthen their capabilities? I believe is the summary of it.
I'm going to let everyone else answer, but just say that it's wonderful for people who live here in Boston because it's easy. I would say it's even better for the people who don't live here because when they're here, nobody's competing for their time. They're not trying to rush home to get dinner ready. They're not trying to, take care of their child. Like, their time on campus is so preserved and genuinely for their personal development, professional development, education. So I would say there's benefits to both, but I actually think it may be even a more pure and positive experience for people who are coming from outside of the city because they really get to focus 100% of their time on them. I was envious of people who were coming from outside because their time here was all them.
As someone who traveled from the West Coast every 2 weeks, it at times it was soul destroying. At times it was such a happy event because you have that protected time, and it's almost like it depends on the week. Because sometimes if it's a test heavy week, it's obviously brutal. But if it's one of those idea week, or it's almost like a mini vacation. I'm gonna be honest with you, and it's super fun. You get to hang out with your friends even after school. You maximize your learning beyond the classroom. Yeah, I think it's all about really balancing. And what I think the only problem was you'll get a lot of FOMO by the because sometimes I had to leave Saturday lunchtime or Saturday afternoon. A lot of the events happen Saturday night, so that's the only disadvantage. But it was such a pleasant experience. So I concur with Lish a lot.
Amazing. I want to start priming you to think about, if there's a question that you haven't been asked that you think thinking back a couple of years ago when before you knew MIT the way you do now, before you had gone through this program, what would you have wanted someone to tell you, or what information surprised you that would have, that maybe you would have wanted to know in advance? You know, we're, today we're talking to people who are either thinking about, they're either planning to apply this year and, they're going to be here at MIT in the fall, or they're just starting to think maybe one day, do I want to do this? And, what would you think about someone in those scenarios might want to know, or you would have at that time?
Sarah, I think I can answer your question and the question about full-time versus EMBA at the same time. if I can
love
take a
it.
attempt at that.
A twofer.
I think for me, I thought about, am I too far in my career? Is it too late? Did I miss the opportunity by not doing a full-time MBA earlier? And I will say for me personally, of course, I am so happy that I am doing this while I am working. Like time aside, being tired aside, trying to prioritize things, like taking all that out of it. The fact that I have 15 years of experience, that I can actually take organizational processes, leading organizations, taking those classes, and we talk about employee behavior, organization behavior. I have real concrete examples of things that I've experienced. So I feel like I can actually learn it better for me because I have that real life work experience while we are learning, but I'm also still working while we're learning this. So it's not like, okay, I'm going to take a break and then work again. Like you're really applying it. And they say, you learn on the weekends, apply it on Monday. Like it actually really is true. So again, it all depends on, what works for you. But for me, doing the EMBA while working has been so valuable and powerful that was something I didn't expect. And for my own personal circumstances, you know what? I need to work while I'm going to school. It is what it is. And that's reality. And I thought, I was just going to school while I was working, but realizing that there's actually a really powerful synergy between the two is something that I didn't realize that has worked out and I'm really happy about.
I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I am just going to be really honest and say I struggled with, is it worth it? This is a huge investment. And looking at comparing my options, and I can say that 2 years out, 100% over the top, worth it. You even just alone, what I learned about, I would say two things I learned that have changed even my own earning potential, and not only during the program, but soon thereafter, is how to work smarter, not harder, and how to negotiate and advocate for yourself. Like I feel like those two things alone in this program, it's an expensive program and it is worth every cent. Sorry to be trite, but that's what I agonize about and that's how I feel now. Like it's so worth it.
Perfect. Joseph, what would you want to tell someone who's kind of a closing words?
I think at the end of the day, it's you get as much as what you put in, meaning that you can actually pinpoint which subjects you can focus on and which subjects you can breeze through. So, for example, for me, for the final project, I really I really put in an exorbitant amount of effort because I knew that I was going to use a lot of that in the future. So, but there are other subjects, obviously to protect the innocent. I'm not gonna name those subjects, but there are some subjects that you can breeze through. So give your time space and be kind to yourself as well. Because I'm sure a lot of the fact that you're attending this session, all of you are probably type A personality. So remember, when you get into the program, remember to also give yourself some space to relax. Don't forget about your friends. Make sure to work out. Continue to lead that balanced lifestyle because at the end of the day, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, those are really perfect words, I think, for closing out. I really appreciate all of you spending this evening with us and sharing all these insights. I know it means a lot to people who are trying to learn more about us to actually get hear from you who've been through it and get your personal insights. For everyone else joining today, if you're thinking about applying this year, we are still accepting applications. We'll be through May, so you definitely still have plenty of time for the class of 2028. And if you're looking to get to know us a little bit more or get more information about the program, we have a number of really interesting panels coming up in different areas. I know, Lish, you mentioned the women in the program. So we have a panel for women and different topics. So we'll have a number of groups of alumni speaking. You can hear a lot of different voices. We even have a couple of in-person sessions left this year. So if you're in DC on March 17th, come see some of us then. Okay. Thank you all for being here tonight. It was a really great conversation. I really loved catching up, especially hearing for Joseph and Lish what you're up to now that I don't see you on an almost weekly basis like I do Kira still. And everyone have a wonderful night. Thanks for joining tonight.